I don't know about you, but to me, this past January and February felt very long, very cold. And then this past week, it's like the world started to warm up. And I was inspired to talk about spring and God's Spirit in us and how we are made in God's image. So I'm really just a country girl. All I like to do is play in the mud and the dirt and grow things and be in nature. It's a little hard in the winter. And it takes a lot of effort to make a garden, to grow things, to see things through from the planting of a seed to the harvesting. And to be honest, usually by the end of fall, I am like done. And I'm often thinking, like, I got to scale it back next year. Like, I can't do all of these things. It's too much work, and maybe I didn't get as many tomatoes as I wanted from my plants, and it wasn't worth the effort. I've been babying a wisteria vine for like 6 years. At my house where I grew up, we had a wisteria vine that had been already, when we moved in, it had been there for a long time. It's huge, and it grew all along our back porch. And in the spring, they would bloom, and you could sit under the vine and be like underneath all these beautiful cascading purple flowers that smelled amazing. And I was like, that's what I want here in Colorado. So I researched like the best one to grow in Colorado, and I ordered it and paid extra money for shipping and all this stuff. And I've been just like trying to get it to grow. And I even transplanted it from here over to our house. And in like 6 years, I've had 3 blooms on it. And every year I'm like, maybe I should just give up. So a lot of the time by the winter and even up until a couple weeks ago, I was like, maybe this year we'll just let it go. Just do the basics or not worry about it too much. I actually had a week off of school 2 weeks ago. And in my mind, I was like, this is the time. You've got a whole week, if you're going to start any seeds or check on your flower bulbs and see if they're doing okay, like this is the time to do it. But it was just so cold. And my brain was telling me one thing, and there was nothing in me that wanted to do that. But this week, all that sunshine, it was a crazy week. We had a busy week at school. We had Annalise's very late birthday party, sleepover. But as soon as everybody went home and I was sitting out in the sunshine, I was like, oh, this is the time. The time has come. Spring! And I pulled out all my flower pots and I started planting tomato seeds, and I dug out my seed drawer and went to the community garden and put in cold weather crops. It's probably too early. They're all going to freeze. Doesn't matter. I pulled out my dahlia tubers and checked for any mold or things like that. I was exhausted, but that was the only thing that I wanted to do. And the funny thing is, it wasn't like a decision that was logical or like something I had on my schedule. It was just this inspiration that wells up from inside. And the only thing I could think of is, where does these good inspiration, these warm feelings, this hope springs eternal feeling come from? It must come from God, right? Where else? It's not like a skill I develop. It's not a decision I make. It's just something that wells up from deep within. So I was thinking about God this week. In the beginning pages of the Bible, we are told that we are made in God's image. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. I think I'm supposed to say them. Male and female, he created them. So this is very telling about God. For one thing, that there's dual characteristics in God. God is not just a masculine entity, that there is a feminine side as well. That's why we refer to God as our heavenly parent, not just our heavenly Father. But that's only one aspect of it, right? If we're made in God's image, it's not just a physical phenomena of like men and women. There's also God's characteristics, right? God's nature, God's virtues that are instilled in us as children. So I feel like that when I have this unexplainable experience of inspiration, that I think my experience must reflect God's to a certain degree. Even though mine is a very small and simple thing, it's not a earth-shaking revelation. It's spring and it's time to plant things. But I think it reflects God's never-ending hope and belief in us as well, right? Despite all the mistakes that we might make, God could gather a lot of evidence against humanity of why it's time to give up. It's not worth the effort. But God doesn't do that. And I think it's not because he's just trudging along because it's duty and he has to. God, our parent, has to take care of these unruly children. I think it's the same thing. This hope springs eternal. Love wells up and never gives up on us. You might have heard this phrase of the indomitable human spirit. Maybe the ability of people to rise above difficult circumstances. To fall down 7 times, but get up 8. I think that that's really also a reflection of God's spirit in us. So not to say that we don't have, right? It's not all God's reflection, right? If all of us were 100% reflecting God's beauty and God's nature and God's virtues, there wouldn't be difficulties. So we still have, right, despite the fall, we do have fallen nature. We do have our weaknesses. But despite that, each one of us has an original nature. Right? Deep inside, our weaknesses and our challenges, our fallen natures, our selfishness, these are things that we have acquired, but it is not the core of who we are. Right? God is our creator. Our original nature is what reflects God. It's always there because we are God's creation, we're God's children. It might get muted. It might get buried for a while. We do make mistakes. We do have selfishness. And I think sometimes we lose sight of where we're going, and so we stray. We make those choices, and then we feel burdened or overwhelmed, or it's hard to believe in that good side of us. But it can never be taken away, right? All those difficulties, all of those struggles, those are things that we have maybe acquired, that have layered on top of us, but it's not who we are. Each person has that. Every single person in this world is a unique individual embodiment of God's truth, of God's love, and can reflect that to the world in a way that nobody else can. And so I think that because of that, there's nobody that God can't reach. There's nobody that God can't reach. We may, with our own eyes, right, in our own horizontal plane, with our human experience, we might think that person's too far gone. There's no hope for them. But I don't think God sees us that way. Because God doesn't see our failures and write us off. God knows who we are, because God knows who He created us to be. No one that God has written off as beyond hope or beyond repair. So I'm keeping this message short because we've already had an exciting service. A lot of good stuff has already happened, but I do want to share a few more quotes with you. God governs what is good, and Satan governs what is evil. The resulting fight between God and Satan starts within us as individuals. We need to understand that this is the reason that human beings can be the origin of evil and the origin of goodness. So I don't want to just paint this as rainbows and butterflies, right? And just make us feel all warm and fuzzy about the goodness in us. We do have capability for great evil, right? We do have that potential, but it's not who we are, right? There's the choice that we can make. Oh, in short, a person can be the starting point of goodness or at the same time the starting point of evil. But this is what we want to focus on. Humankind is created in the likeness of God. In other words, human beings are God incarnate. Can we look at each other that way? Can we see that our brothers and our sisters, the person next to me in the pew, is actually, right? It's like infused with God's Spirit. I love the quote from Les Miserables, like, to love another person is to see the face of God. Humankind is the mirror of the living God, and God's every virtue, characteristic, and quality are reflected in the mirror. So that was a simple inspiration that I had this week, but I really felt that it was something that was sincere and that just welled up from me. Like, I can't make, like, on my own effort, I can't just make good things happen in my life all the time. There's something really deep within me that when it connects to God, when I'm on the same resonance as God, like, it fills me with inspiration, it fills me with joy, it fills me with energy. I had no reason to have energy this weekend after the week and the birthday party and the sleepover. Like, normally, if I'm just thinking about myself, that'd be a good time for me to take a nap. All I wanted to do was go out and create something. And it was just kind of surprising to me. I don't feel that way all the time, but because it was such a unique phenomenon, I think it really just reminded me of how much we are made in God's image. Yes, we have problems. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, we've acquired selfishness. Sometimes we put blame on others. Sometimes we try to avoid our responsibility. All those things, yes. But at the core of who I am a child of God. And the core of who I am wants to do good. And when that is uninhibited by, I can let go of my selfishness, I can let go of my pride, that it just like creates a space for God to do something in my life. So mostly I just wanted this message to be a reminder for each one of us of who we are, where we come from, and the potential we have inside us for good. And I want to share this quote from the Bible, 2 Timothy, verse 1-7. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. If we're experiencing fear, if we're experiencing doubt, if we're experiencing shame, all those feelings we don't want to be experiencing, that's not from God. I really feel like I should have also shared this other song. There's a song that shares about how this is how, right, evil controls us. Because when we're acting out of fear, or we're acting out of shame, or we're acting out of resentment, or acting out of blame, then it's like the complete opposite of doing anything good, right? It's almost like a tactic of evil to keep us down. So if you're feeling those emotions, I encourage you to remember that is not you, that is not who you are. For God gives us a spirit of power and love and self-control. And lastly, my message is to not be discouraged. Sometimes we do need to pass through a winter season, right? Sometimes just surviving can be a victory. We can't always be 100%. But that is not our final destination. And I believe that one of the reasons that God made seasons is to remind us that after winter comes the spring. And that after a dark night, the sun always rises. It always happens. And that hope springs eternal. So that's my simple message. Please join me in prayer. Our Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for a beautiful Sunday morning, this beautiful week. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. And I just pray that as we wrap up this time together, that we can take a moment to open up our hearts to you. I know that you have love for us, that you have a message for us, that you are really hoping to have some space in our life to guide us and to inspire us and to move us. But sometimes we have to take that first step and to open up our hearts to you, maybe to crack our hard exterior to let your warmth in. And I pray that we can, as we head into the spring season, that we can just really be open to the warmth of your love and see those fruits in our life, and to the best of our abilities, share that love with others. And we just thankful for this time together. We offer it to you. And I pray this in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, Blessed Central Family. Amen. And on you. Thank you.